Hey there, Shalko here. Today I want to share with you 11 of my tips that I found helpful in navigating the application process for financial resources during the COVID-19 crisis. There's a lot of mega lists out there of resources that are available to you. I've put the ones I've found linked in the description below, but what I want to focus on here is the tips that help me navigate the whole application process. Okay, so here's what I'm going to get into. We're going to start by setting our core intentions. Then we're going to go over places that you can look for financial resources, how to prioritize those financial resources, and then how to organize and streamline your application process. If you get stuck along the way, ways to get over that, and how to pass it along and help support others in your community to share the love. So, if that sounds like it would be useful to you, let's get into this. I like to start with emotionally grounding myself. There's lots of thoughts and feelings that come along with this, so if yours are anything but positive, just starting with what your core feeling and intention is a great place to ground yourself so that all the energy you put into it feeds into that rather than any worries, doubts, or fears you may have. So if I'm feeling anything less than stoked, I stop and take a minute to state my goal and my intention, which is, hey, I'm gonna go apply myself at finding financial opportunities to create stability in my life. That's pretty awesome, right? So once you have that core intention set, it's time for number 2, know the landscape. Before diving into things, it's always good to just take a moment, even if you already know it, to just familiarize yourself with the landscape. So I found there's 3 main categories for financial assistance: grants, subsidies, and forgivable loan. Grants are for individuals or businesses, and they're typically allotted for specific uses. Subsidies are government incentives or assistance designed to help individuals and businesses and organizations. Forgivable loans are loans to businesses or individuals that are forgiven if conditions are met. Tip number 3, know where to look. So, where do you find these financial assistance programs? I'll be providing a resource list at the end. There's tons of these mega resource lists out there, and they're constantly changing and being updated. For this video, I'm going to focus on sharing the ways that I found that help me navigate what can be an overwhelming process. There's lots and lots of resource lists out there, but really if you just define 2 or 3 of the things that qualify what you're looking for, it's pretty easy to find. So if you're looking for emergency art relief grants, you can Google that and come up with an exhaustive list of results. The National Endowment for the Arts has an amazing resource list. And a lot of these I've included in my resource list. It's pretty easy to find. You can also look to local organizations, the small business associations, art commissions, and there's also just grassroots organizations popping up, putting together their own grants. So I'll share my list that you can go through, and then if you have any resources that I didn't mention, I'd love it if you drop it in the comments so we can make this an epic resource list for folks. I'll go ahead and go through those and add any to my list. So once you've identified the funding that you want to apply for, it's time for tip number 4, prioritization. So how do you prioritize how you apply for this funding? In my experience, grants tend to get exhausted the fastest, and then subsidies, and then forgivable loans. So I prioritize the most time-sensitive ones, the ones that are the most important to me, and then I apply for those and move through the list. Tip number 5, double check. Once you've gone through and you've identified and prioritized and applied for your grants, it's good to go and have another look. Sometimes things become replenished. Sometimes things get exhausted sooner than they expect to. Sometimes new grants become available. Things change all the time, so don't just assume because you've done the research once that you're done. It's a changing landscape, so double check. Tip number 6, stay organized. So I never input my information directly into the application form in these web browsers. I always do it in a parallel document and then input it in. There's lots of times where because of the back button or refresh that you lose your form, your application that you put all this time and energy into. So it can help you avoid application fatigue if you go ahead and you keep that in a parallel document. And then once you've applied to one grant, you can take that same information and tailor it to another grant pretty easily. It helps reduce the application fatigue and streamline the process. So staying organized is always good. Keep track of what you've applied for, when, and what are the follow-up dates. And that brings us to tip number 7, follow up. It's good to keep track of if there's a next step or a notification date. That way you can follow up easily. Maybe put it in your calendar. I was awarded a $1,500 grant and it got lost in my inbox. And so when that grant notification date came, I reached out to the organization. I said, hey, I'm missing my grant notification. They're like, we wrote you twice. I looked again and there it was. So check your spam folder. Be sure to follow up on things. You know, I put all that energy into applying for a $1,500 grant. It would be a shame if I missed it because it got lost in my inbox and all I had to do was reply to receive it. So it's always a good idea to follow up. All right, you guys, we're doing good. We're more than halfway through. Let's keep this rolling. Stay focused. I use the 3x50 practice to help me keep my focus. So I set an amount of time that I'm going to work on this, 3 hours. And I work for 50-minute blocks. I have my list of prioritized applications. I move through that list, and after 50 minutes, my timer goes off. I take a 10-minute break. I get away from the computer, I go for a walk, change things up. It helps me recharge and stay focused. Then when I sit down, I stay focused for another 50 minutes, put away all the distractions, the phone's away, there's no going on Facebook. It's just solidly focused on that task. And then 50 minutes goes by, take a break. After 3 hours, I know that I've done what I committed to do. I find it helps to commit to doing things for a certain amount of time, so you know when you're finished, you know when you're done, and you can cut yourself some slack, sign off for the day, do something else, go take care of yourself. So tip number 8, stay focused. Tip number 9, raise your hand if you need help. There's a lot of thoughts and feelings that come along with doing all this. It's okay to ask for help. A lot of these organizations that are providing these resources are overwhelmed and they can't answer your questions directly. However, there are a lot of communities and online forums where you'll find people are going through the same process. You can go through them, see if somebody else has run into the same problem, question, challenge that you have. It can be so relieving to know that somebody else has gone through it and figured out a way to navigate through it. Sometimes it gives you just that little extra bit of confidence you need to push through doing something. So if you have a question, read through the communities. There's lots of Reddit communities, Facebook groups, business and professional groups. You're probably already a member of one. So if you hit a wall, go see if somebody else has encountered that problem in that group. Or if nobody's raised that question, ask. So often people are happy to help. If you're having a hard time sitting down and pushing through an application, reach out to a friend. See if they'll hop on a Zoom call and either co-work with you on this stuff, or if they'll just sit there as you go through the application and go through all the thoughts and feels that come along with it. People are often, in my experience, happy to help. So don't be afraid to raise your hand. It's all right to need help with this stuff. Number 10, hearing no is a step to success. I don't know what to call this one. Number 10, stay dedicated. What I mean by this is it's really easy to feel discouraged when you get a no. However, you're gonna end up more than likely applying to more things than you get accepted to, right? Makes sense, which means that along the way, part of the process is going to be hearing no. So let's say that. Number 10, stay dedicated, or being told no is part of the process. So instead of seeing no as a disappointment, see it as a stepping stone in the right direction. You are on your way to the next yes. Which reminds me, if you're applying for forgivable loans, don't just apply with one lender. You may want to first apply with your federal credit union or your local bank, the business that you're used to doing business with. However, you can apply through multiple lenders. It might not be the first or fifth or sixth application that you submit. It might be the 10th one that comes through. But if you're organized, it'll be easy to streamline that process and put yourself out there as many times as you can to find the opportunity that's going to come through to you. So good luck with that. Not what you want to hear, but it's a sign that you're putting yourself out there. And finally, tip number 11, help each other out. If you find tools or resources that benefit you, share those with your community. For example, if this video helped you, share it with someone else that it could benefit. It can be so rewarding to help others. That's why I made this video, in hopes that taking the things that I learned and what I gained from my experience and what other people shared with me and creating a resource with it that can help elevate others, it comes back to you. Maybe not the same way that you invest your energy, but it all comes back around. So help each other out. Down below, you'll find a link in the description of the resources I've compiled while going through this process for individuals, businesses, artists, creatives, really anyone who's looking for financial assistance in this COVID-19 crisis. So go ahead, check it out. Thanks for joining me. I'm Shalako, and these were my 11 tips for applying for financial assistance. If you found this video useful, go ahead and hit that like button so YouTube knows it's the good shit. If you have any tips or resources that you'd like to share, please drop them in the comments. I'd love for this to be a hub of resources for people and a place where people can share the things that have helped them along the way. Let's help each other out. I'll be keeping an eye on them and adding them to my document. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.